Before Frodo, before the ring, there was a man who stole from a god for love. The love story behind every love story in Middle-earth. Tolkien hid his most personal secret in plain sight. The real reason Aragorn and Arwen's love exists, the real reason Frodo survived Shelob's lair, all of it began with a mortal who dared to steal from a god. And Tolkien took this secret to his grave. This isn't just Middle-earth lore, it's why the entire Lord of the Rings exists. Skip the next 15 minutes, and you'll never understand the one story Tolkien was willing to die with, about love, death, and why even the gods trembled before it. Here he is, Beren, last lord of a fallen house, hunted, hungry, haunted. His father, Barahir, died shielding an elven king named Finrod Felagund, but that's a tale for another day. For now, Beren's a ghost in his own life, until he sees her. She doesn't move like a person, she moves like music remembered from a dream. The grass doesn't bend beneath her, it listens, and the stars seem to slow, just to watch. But wandering in the summer in the woods of Neldareth, he came upon Lúthien, daughter of Thingol and Melian, at a time of evening under moonrise, as she danced upon the unfading grass in the glades beside Esgalduin. Then, all memory of his pain departed from him, and something inside him breaks. Not with sorrow, with wonder. The weight he's carried, the grief, the guilt, the fire and ruin. It doesn't vanish. It's simply quiet. He doesn't know her name, but he calls her Tinuviel, because what else could she be but a nightingale in human form? Lúthien Tinuviel. Let's break that down. Tinuviel doesn't just mean nightingale. It means song carried on moonlight. It means the sound that makes a forest remember spring. And her lineage. Her mother is Melian, a Maya, one of the angelic spirits from before the world was shaped. Her father, Thingol, the proud king of Doriath, a monarch so fierce he once stood before Avala and did not flinch. Together, they made Doriath a fortress, and their daughter? She was its living soul. Thingol's throne wasn't just wood, it was regret crystallized into crown and stone. Once, he dreamed of the Sylmerils, and like many dreams in Middle-earth, it soured into obsession. So when Beren, dirt-caked, defiant, stands before him, asking for Lúthien's hand, Thingol sees no hero, just a hollow name and a bold mouth. He narrows his eyes. I see the ring of Barahir. You are proud, mortal. But what is that to me? His voice cuts like a sword drawn in ceremony. Lúthien steps forward. Her voice is quiet, too quiet. By your law, he may speak. The court hushes. Melian turns her gaze away. Thingol rises as his cloak trails behind him like shadow. Very well, he says. Go your way, son of Barahir. Bring me a Sylmeril from Morgoth's crown. And then, if she wills it, Lúthien may place her hand in yours. The silence is absolute. Even the mural behind the throne, the sons of Feanor swearing their cursed oath, seems to burn brighter in the gloom. A Sylmeril, from the Iron Crown, of Morgoth. Dragons, Balrogs, werewolves, and despair guard those jewels. Even the mightiest of elves failed. And now, a man must try? Most would laugh. But Beren, he does not laugh. He bows, not in fear, in resolve. Cue the record scratch. Let's pause and pass this for a moment. There was Morgoth, who is quite simply Satan with a better PR team. His crown, 3 stolen jewels, blazing with heaven's light, guarded by dragons, demons, and despair. Even Feanor's fanatical sons fail to reclaim them. And now, Thingol wants a human to try. It's like sending a sparrow to steal from a volcano. But Beren bows, not in surrender, but in purpose. The court, gilded in shadow and silence, watches a mortal walk into legend, but one pair of eyes follows with more than awe. Lúthien doesn't move until her heart does. A tremor rises, not in the stone beneath her feet, but in the air between them. It's not grief. Not yet. It's the sting of betrayal wrapped in ceremony. A father offering love in exchange for ruin. And then she speaks, not in rage, not in sorrow, but with a voice carved from moonlight and morning. What she asks is simple, not whether the task is possible. She knows it is not. Not whether Beren is brave. She's already seen the quiet fire he carries. What she asks, without asking, is this. How could love be measured in jewels? How could the worth of a soul be priced in light, stolen from the gods? The Sylmerils were not mere treasures. Forged by Feanor in the height of his glory, they captured the light of the two trees, Telperion and Lorelin, long before sun and moon ever rose. To desire them was to long for the untouched light of creation itself. But they were cursed. After Morgoth stole them, they became symbols of obsession, oath, and death. The sons of Feanor swore to reclaim them at any cost. And that cost would echo through every age. Broken kingdoms, slain kin, fire, and exile. So when Thingol demands one as a bride price, he is not being poetic. He is resurrecting the curse, willingly inviting the doom that had already consumed the Noldor. And Lúthien, she sees it, all of it. Her words ripple through the hall. Words no minstrel dares record, not for their volume, but for their clarity. Thingol doesn't answer. He can't, because in that moment, he sees what he has done, not just to her, but to himself, to Doriath, to the world. And Lúthien, she doesn't plead, she doesn't weep. She gathers her cloak, walks past the throne, and follows the one she loves, not into safety, but into legend. Behind her, the hall does not echo, it listens. The borders of Doriath were not meant to be crossed. Woven by Melian the Maya herself, the girdle was more than protection. It was will. A wall of enchantment encircling a kingdom, keeping shadow and sorrow at bay. No enemy passed it. No wanderer stumbled in. Even the wind moved more carefully within its bounds. But Lúthien was no enemy, and she did not stumble. The spell parted, not in failure, but in grief. Because her mother, Melian, felt her daughter's choice long before the leaves rustled or the trail grew cold. And for the first time since the world was young, the Queen of Doriath wept. Now, here's the twist. Morgoth wants thieves to try. Every drop of blood spilled for his Sylmerils. It's fertilizer for his power. So while Beren thinks he's sneaking in, Morgoth's rolling out the welcome mat. And Sauron, he's already picking their bones clean. Angband was not a fortress. It was a living nightmare. Its towers clawed at a starless sky, and its air reeked of sulfur and despair. Here, Beren and Lúthien stood, a mortal armed with nothing but his father's ring and a vow, and an elf maiden whose song once made the Valar weep. Their mission? To pluck a Sylmeril from Morgoth's crown. Madness? Perhaps. But love, in Middle-earth, often wears madness like a cloak. Beren's fingers brush the ring of Barahir, its crest worn smooth by generations of lost lords. Lúthien's voice, low and steady, hummed a melody older than the sun. Together, they were a paradox. A man fueled by mortal grit, and a half-divine woman wielding a lullaby that could unravel hell itself. The gates of Angband loomed, guarded by wolves with eyes like smouldering coals. Sauron, architect of lies, future forger of the One Ring, had salted the path with traps, not just spells, but taunts, whispers that slithered into the mind. Turn back, you are dust, she will forget you. Lúthien's song sharpened, Her notes, pure and piercing, shattered Sauron's curses. The wolves recoiled, howling as if scalded by moonlight. Deeper they crept, through halls echoing with the cries of elves, long broken by Morgoth's cruelty. Beren's hand trembled, not from fear, but from the weight of the oath he'd sworn. To his father, to Lúthien, to himself. Her fingers interlaced with his, a silent pact. Together, or not at all. At the heart of the abyss, Morgoth slumbered. His crown, twisted iron studded with 3 Sylmerils, glowed like captured stars. The jewels pulsed, their holy light defiled by the Dark Lord's touch. Beren lunged, his father's ring blazing, and froze. The floor trembled, and then growl, deep and ruinous, shook the black stone walls. Carcharoth, the Red Maw, emerged, a creature bred in the dark of Angband, wrought by Morgoth to be a terror to the world. It is no mere beast, but the mightiest of werewolves. His hunger was endless, his fury unstoppable, and his jaws. Those jaws would soon taste the fire of the Sylmeril. Lúthien sang, and the spell ignited. Not with sweetness, but with force, a crescendo of defiance woven in light. Each note unraveled shadow. Each breath cracked the silence Morgoth had ruled for ages. Before her, the beast faltered. Carcharoth, bred in the dark of Angband to be Morgoth's terror upon the world, stood still. His hunger slowed by a song older than fear. Not conquered, not calmed, but bound for a single trembling moment. And in that heartbeat of stillness, Beren moved. He reached toward the Iron Crown, toward the holiest flame ever stolen. His hand closed on a Sylmeril. It burned, not with fire, but with purity, a searing of spirit and flesh. The light of the 2 trees, unmarred, now blazed through mortal skin. And Beren screamed. That scream became the signal. Carcharoth struck. Fangs like iron gates snapped through bone. The Sylmeril and the hand that bore it vanished into the wolf's maw. But Carcharoth did not howl in triumph. He howled in torment. Because the Sylmeril, made in bliss and blessed before the marring of the world, was not meant to dwell within corruption. Inside him, it burned like a star imprisoned in darkness. And that darkness screamed. Far above, Morgoth stirred, his slumber shattered, and his roar cracked the stone halls of Angband. Lúthien, her voice now only a thread of breath, dragged Beren into the shadowed tunnels. Behind them, Carcharoth's wails rose like prophecy, a sound not of victory, but of wrath, unbound. They escaped, but there was no joy in it. Beren's arm ended at a bleeding stump. Lúthien's voice, once strong enough to shake towers, was now a whisper of pain. And yet, in the belly of the wolf, wrapped in fire and madness, the Sylmeril still burned. Not lost, not broken. A single, holy light in a world still drowning in shadow. Morgoth stirred, and the world trembled. The Sylmeril, burning in the belly of a maddened beast, was no longer in Angband. It was running, southward, toward the forests of Doriath, toward the girdle, toward ruin. And Beren and Lúthien, their tale was not yet over, because in Middle-earth, even miracles bleed, and some victories come bearing their own curses. Oh, and if you're wondering why Sauron has vanished from this part of the story, he hasn't. We're leaving him behind, for now. But watch closely. The shadows he cast still stretch across future episodes. Beren's breath slowed, not with peace, but with the final heaviness of the world letting go. In the scorched plains of Anfuglith, Lúthien cradled him in silence. Her fingers trembled against the grime on his face, each tear carving trails through ash and memory. Beside them, the Sylmeril lay, not triumphant, but dimmed, as though even its hallowed light mourned the mortal who dared defy a god. He tried to speak. Only one word came. A name, soft as breath. Tinuviel. Then, stillness. No heartbeat. No light in his eyes. Lúthien did not cry. She sang. A song so raw, so steeped in grief, that the wind fell silent. The stars blurred. Even the Valar, in their deathless halls, turned their gaze away. And for the first time since the world was made, an immortal understood what it meant to die. She carried him home, through shadow and thorn, across the tangled wilds of Beleriand, back to Menegroth, her father's hidden kingdom. There, before Thingol's throne, she stood, her eyes hollow, the Sylmeril in her hand, glowing like a curse. The king looked upon the jewel, and in its reflection saw only ruin. She did not ask, nor did she beg. She placed the Sylmeril at his feet. This was the bride price. This was the cost. But Thingol, for all his pride, could not pay what she asked next. No elf commands death. No throne sways the will of Mandos. Even Melian, whose foresight stretched beyond stars, offered only silence. A soft hand to her daughter's cheek, followed by a whisper, "Let him go, Lúthien." But Lúthien laughed, and her laughter was fire. She turned from the court, not as a princess, not as a daughter, as a storm. Northward she walked, into the tangled roots of Tornufuin, the forest of nightmares. The trees clawed, the shadows hissed, but her song did not falter. She sang not of joy, but of grief, of rebellion, of love that would not be caged by fate. And the land listened. Rocks split, the air trembled, the world made way for one who no longer belonged to it. And at last, she stood before the halls of Mandos. They were not actually halls, but more like void given shape with a silence deeper than time. Mandos sat within, his face carved from stillness and his eyes like the memory of night. At his feet flickered a spirit, fragile, faint. It is what remained of Beren. Lúthien did not weep, and then she knelt, not in worship, but in defiance. In the beginning, when the children of Ilúvatar were first sung into being, two destinies were set. The elves would live as long as the world itself, bound to its wounds, its wonders, its weariness. They do not die of age, but they do not escape the sorrow of time. Men were different. To them, Ilúvatar gave a gift, mortality, not as a curse, but as freedom. To leave the world when their part was played, to go beyond the circles of Arda, to an end and a beginning that even the Valar could not see. But that gift, misunderstood, became feared, and in fearing it, men called it doom. What Lúthien is about to do is ask for that gift, not out of despair, but out of love, and spoke, not to the Valar, but to the will behind the world. "You hold what is mine. Release him." Mandos answered, his voice older than language. "Death is the gift of Eru to men. Would you undo the design of the One?" And she, whose song had defeated Sauron, who had walked into Angband unburned, sang again, not of power, of memory, of a glade and laughter, of a hand held in winter, of a man who looked at her as if she were the last light in a world falling to shadow. And the doomsman flinched. A single tear, cold as starlight, fell from his unblinking gaze, and the silence broke. No one else had ever returned from death, but for them, Mandos granted mercy. Yet mercy, in Arda, always bears a price. They might return, but together, and mortal. Immortality, for one brief breath of life. He offered the choice. She did not hesitate. At the edge of a forgotten wood, beneath the first blush of dawn, they awoke. Barren, scarred, but whole. Lúthien, breathing but changed. In her veins now flowed the tide of time. No longer ageless, no longer bound to the circles of the elves. Hand in hand, they walked east, a living bridge between death and life, between elf and man. But the Sylmeril still burned, and with it, the doom it carried. Kingdoms would fall, wars would ignite, and far off, in the shadows left behind, a lesser power nursed a deeper hatred. As for Lúthien's choice, it would echo in Arwen's final breath, in Frodo's trembling hand, in every heart that has ever whispered, "What would I give for love?" Beren and Lúthien awoke to a world remade. Dawn's light felt sharper, birdsong cut deeper. Lúthien, once timeless, now felt every fleeting second, the weight of mortality settling into her bones like dusk into the sea. Beren's arm, once severed, now whole, trembled as he traced her cheek, restored by means no minstrel dares explain. He whispered her name, not as a question, but as a vow, Tinuviel. Together they walked east, into the green stillness of Assyrian. The Sylmeril blazed in Beren's grip, reclaimed from the ruin of the wolf, but even in victory, its light felt heavy, as if Morgoth's hand still clung to it. Whispers followed them. Envious eyes glinted beneath the leaves, for the Sylmeril's fire called not only to wonder, but to doom. In Doriath, Thingol sat beneath the 1,000 lights of Menegroth, staring into the jewel his daughter had won. He called it a treasure, but his hands trembled in its glow. Against Melian's counsel, he gave his order. The jewel would be set, framed in gold, bound for glory. He summoned the dwarves of Nogrod to forge a setting worthy of it. They came, they shaped it, and in doing so, they desired it. The Nauglamir was not born in Doriath. It was ancient, crafted in Valinor by the Noldor before the world was broken. When Thingol asked the dwarves to set the Sylmeril in its heart, the necklace became something else. No longer just beautiful, now it was cursed, because it held the pride of elves and the greed of dwarves, and it would break them both. The smiths demanded it as payment. Thingol refused, and in the echoing halls of stone, blood fell. The king of Doriath was slain. The jewel, passed like a poisoned chalice, ignited the slow collapse of a kingdom. The girdle of Melian, broken by sorrow, faded into mist. Melian returned to the west, and Beren and Lúthien, far away, felt the tremor of loss once more. They did not return to Doriath. They had no home left to return to. "We broke the world," Beren murmured. Lúthien's kiss was his answer. "No," it said. "We gave it a heartbeat." Their son, Dior, inherited the Sylmeril, and with it, its doom. When the sons of Fëanor came, starved for what their father swore to reclaim, Dior stood fast. He fell. From his ashes rose Elwing, fleeing to the sea with the jewel burning at her breast. There, at the edge of the world, Eärendil waited, half elven, half star. Together, they sailed into the west, the Sylmeril bound to Eärendil's brow, a light for the lost. Ages later, a hobbit would carry that light in a glass phial into the webbed blackness of Shelob's lair, and a man named Aragorn would raise a broken sword beneath its gleam, forging a kingdom out of ash and memory. Arwen and Domiel, Lúthien's echo, would choose the same road. A mortal life, a mortal love, a mortal end. As for Beren and Lúthien, they faded as mortals do. No statues stood, no ballads bore their graves, but their blood endured, a bridge between elf and man, woven into the sinew of Middle-earth itself. They left no throne, no monument, only a story, passed in whispers, sung in sorrow, and carried in the veins of kings and hobbits alike. They passed from the world, but in their fading, something eternal remained. Not power, not victory, but love. Tolkien never called Edith Lúthien, but in his own words, she was the source of the story that in time became the chief part of the Sylmarillion. It was first conceived in a small woodland glade, and she was dancing there. And with that memory, the tale began.